Shadow of the Colossus. Do I really need to introduce this game? Chances are you played it, since it released on 3 separate PlayStation generations and is available to play on 4. The reputation this game has as being mentioned as one of the best games of all time has drawn me to it for a while now. Its beautiful, expansive open world, mysterious story, great looking boss fights were always intriguing to me, and I wanted to play it ever since the PS4 remake released in 2018. I never got around to that though. But with the help of the backwards compatibility on the PS5 and a good sale I found it on at a local game store, I decided to finally bite. And oh man, I did not know what kind of a ride this game is gonna take me on. All the footage you're currently looking at is from my New Game Plus playthrough, since I didn't think I would have this much to say before playing it for the first time. After finishing this game twice now, all I can say is that, well, I expected a timeless masterpiece and got not exactly that. In this video we are going to go through all of the game, so here's your spoiler warning. We will go through my thoughts on the story, gameplay loop and its different mechanics, go into the open world and art aspect of the game, and end things off with my conclusion. By the way, I know how beloved this game is to its fans, but I'm gonna kinda bash it at points, so get ready for that. Going into the game, you're greeted by this really nice pre-rendered cutscene showing us our protagonist traveling with a wrapped body on horseback. Eventually, we arrive at the Forbidden Lands, with a long bridge connecting it to the main temple of sorts. That's where the cutscene ends, by the way, and the same cutscene plays every time you open the game and you have to skip it every time for some reason, but whatever. After that, we continue on with our main cast, in which Agro, Mono, and I don't know what his name is, so I'm gonna call him Mikey, arrive at the main temple. After the gang gets through the main hall into the temple, Mikey puts the corpse on a weird, conveniently placed human-sized table. While that happens, a narrator tells us about the origins of this place, with it being the resonance of intersecting points and memories replaced by ants and Nod etched into stone, and about the creature that supposedly inhabits the place, a being that can control creatures created from light, and one who even possesses the power to resurrect the dead. The narrator also tells us that entering these lands is strictly forbidden, for a reason yet unknown to us. We get back to the temple, where creatures of pure darkness appear before Mikey. He manages to get rid of them with a seemingly magical sword that casts a ray of light, dispersing the creatures. That draws attention of the previously mentioned creature living within the temple. It asks about the sword Mikey is using, calling it the Ancient Sword. And here we hear Mikey speak whole sentences for the first and also only time in the game. He asks if the voice's name is Dorman, and that he was told that Dorman can bring back the souls of the dead. Mono was sentenced to death because of her foretold cursed fate. Dorman questions Mikey though, stating, isn't it the law of the mortals that lost souls cannot be reclaimed? He follows that up with saying it might not be impossible, since Mikey possesses the ancient sword. That comes with a price though. In order to get what Mikey wants, he must destroy the 16 idols within the chamber, yet they shall only break if you kill the Colossus that the idol is representing. From here, we are sent on the journey to kill these 16 Colossi and revive Mono. There isn't much going on until the end of the game, where we see that the tribe Mikey is from noticed the missing sword, and they have figured out what Mikey is planning on doing. They head out to stop him, but they arrive too late. Upon their entry, they see Mono waiting on the pedestal. We get back to the scene of the final battle, where Mikey lies seemingly dead, yet is again transported back into the main temple. Back at the temple, his body is thrown down onto the floor, which attracts the attention of the tribe members. Mikey gets up, seemingly possessed by the darkness of the creatures he has killed. His skin a pale tone, eyes shining with a blue light and horns growing out of his head. He heads towards the soldiers, or better said, in the direction of Mono. He is shot and shortly after executed by the soldiers as a mercy. His body leaks the dark matter that has before only been ejecting from wounded colossi. Seemingly mortally wounded, Mikey gets up once more, takes the sword out of his chest, and falls back onto the ground, being consumed by darkness. The tribe turns their attention back to the girl, when Mikey's body starts growing with darkness, turning into the now released Dorman. Dorman tells us that the ancestors of their tribe have split his soul into 16 parts and sealed them into the Colossi, keeping Dorman weak and without a way to get back to his full power. Ammon, the tribe's leader, says that they now need to put a protective seal over the entire temple to prevent Dorman from escaping. In one of the coolest moments of the game, we, now as Dorman, try to prevent the soldiers from leaving the temple. But even with our best efforts, the soldiers still manage to get away, and Ammon throws the ancient sword into the body of water at the bottom of the great staircase. The pool erupts with a beam of light, dragging Dorman, with Mikey's body still inside, into it. The player can try to prevent this from happening, but no matter what, you will be dragged in. The tribe members manage to escape with the bridge collapsing behind them. We turn back to the girl on the pedestal, seeing her lifeless body, waiting. Finally, she awakes. Confused as to where she is, she comes down from the pedestal and walks further into the hall. Then, our good friend Agro, who was presumed dead after Mikey lost him on his way to the final Colossus, walks into the Great Hall as well. His leg being broken, he hops closer to greet the girl. And that is where the game seemingly ends. The credits start rolling, we see some of the Colossi we have defeated and their dead bodies now covered in dust and sand, laying where they once roamed. But then, we get back to the tribe members trying to escape the temple. Now with the Forbidden Lands having no way in or out, Ammon turns around and gives the temple a final look. He talks about how if Mikey has survived, and even if it's possible to exist within these sealed lands, no man will ever trespass again, that maybe one day he might take atonements for what he has done. Returning to the temple, Mono and Agro continue to head towards the exit. Arriving at the bottom of the staircase, they hear a faint crying of a child. When they look inside, there he is, Mikey, now a horned infant, laying on the floor. The girl takes Mikey on his arms and proceeds to head up. Since the bridge is broken, they head further up, finding a secret garden buzzing with life. And there, they stay. As the camera follows an eagle flying into the night sky, the game ends. You might have noticed that I skipped from the first cutscene to basically the end of the game, and I did that for a reason. The reason being that there's basically zero story in the middle chunk of the game. There's like a few cutscenes showing attachment that Agro and Mikey have towards Mono, but besides that, there's no other important stuff. The only dialogue we get in the middle of the game is from Dorman describing the next Colossus on our hit list. Now, you might be wondering why I didn't just Google the name of the main protagonist and the Colossi, and I did that to make a point. Dorman, Agro, Mono and Emon get a name, but our protagonists, the actual lands, the tribe, none of that is stated within the game. The Colossi, as far as I know, are just vaguely named by their type, with fans giving them actual names. Mono is especially annoying because her name is literally mentioned twice in the whole game. Once, where Mikey mutters her name after the fight with the 8th Colossus, but he says it so quietly and without subtitles that I completely missed it the first time I played the game. And the second time, being mentioned in the credits. Why wouldn't they just say her name while Mikey was talking to Dorman? What is the vagueness for? And why is the name of the main character stated only in an art book and the Japanese title of the game? Yes, I knew his name was Wander all along, but I wanted to keep calling him Mikey because I think it's funny. Besides that, the fact that the game just starts off having a story then quits for 90% of the runtime just to re-enter at the very end does not sit right with me. There's a way to make minimal storytelling work, but that's not the way to go. Having nothing story related for the majority of the game is just dumb. There could have been at least some environmental storytelling in different locations, maybe some notes, anything that could hint to where the story is heading or maybe the backstory of the place. Some might say it would take too much away from the mystery, but in my opinion that would just compel the player to go further into the mystery and try to piece together a picture of what might have happened here. The notes and the environmental storytelling wouldn't even have to reveal anything huge, just some scraps of a story to greaten the sense of this being an actual world, or a game that has anything close to a story. Now I know this game is supposed to be a prequel to Eco with many of its themes tying into that game, but I haven't played that. And even if I did, the narrative of this game should stand on its own without having to be related to a different game. Now don't get me wrong, I like the parts of a story that are here, but that's what they are. Parts. There isn't anything gluing the beginning and the ending parts of the narrative together. And if the narrative isn't here, then you think the gameplay would carry the middle chunk of the game, right? Right? The game centers around the main temple. It's sort of a hub. From here we are out on our own to go to the different colossi all around the world. The first things I noticed when I played the game for the first time was that the controls are really weird. For example, you press triangle to call your mount, then triangle again to mount it, and then hold triangle to gallop, which I wasn't really a fan of. If you want to move the camera while riding the horse, you cannot let go of the triangle button to use the stick. That will cause your mount to slow down. What I did is this really weird grip right here just to have the ability to look around. That's really bad. Especially when you want to use the really wonky bow to aim while riding. At least then the horse is locked into sprinting, but You can also use your sword to direct the horse with your right stick without having to hold triangle, but that's not really optimal either. The horse in general just feels really stiff to control and likes to get stuck on different rocks and branches. There even are some sections around the world where they force the horse to slow down to a crawl. I just prefer to go on foot in these situations, honestly. When going to the first Colossus, we are introduced to climbing. And no, the wonk did not stop at the horse riding. Climbing in this game feels really unresponsive and weird, especially during the big boss fights. It's really easy to get stuck in a weird spot or get locked in a stunned state, which makes you unable to attack. Sometimes you can't even correct yourself to get to the weak point because Wonder just refuses to go in the direction you want him to go. It's really annoying and is not reliable at all. Combine that with the sometimes unpredictable behavior of the Colossi and you get something that isn't reliable enough to always provide fun gameplay scenarios. Not only that, but the camera in this game might honestly be one of the worst cameras I ever used. It really likes to take control away from you at points, and it likes to snap back to the direction it wants you to look at. It's fine during horse riding, but in any other scenario the camera is just extremely annoying and feels like it has a mind of its own, doing the exact opposite of what you want to do. It's really bad. Following every Colossus fight you get, I wanna say teleported, but honestly more like brutally murdered and revived back at the main temple. From there you're given the direction to the next Colossus and you go and fight it, and yeah, that's it. Near the end of the game it tries to introduce something more with a few bigger cutscenes at the end of every Colossus fight, but that's like there's like two of them and they're like just that, they're just some cutscenes playing after a boss fight. They change nothing within the main gameplay loop, but that's okay. Many games have just one thing you do in them, right? Like the Tony Hawk's games or Call of Duty even. But these games explore different scenarios and give you much more variety in the tasks you're given to complete. Going further with the Tony Hawk's analogy, this game also features a time mode, which yes, gives the game more content to play with, including a whole slate of items you can unlock, but they don't really change how you approach the game. There aren't multiple ways to approach an enemy or different items you can use that would drastically change the way you think about going into an encounter. It's just you doing the same thing again, but now with a timer running. Now, this is my biggest problem with the game. It has such an amazing premise, a world and general idea for itself, but there just isn't something to tie the whole thing together. It's almost like the devs wanted to make the game where you battle huge bosses and explore a vast world, but they didn't know what else to do with it and how to fill that world, or even what else the player could do besides fighting the bosses. We will touch on that later in the open world section of the video though. For now, let's stick with the bosses themselves. Are they enough to carry the whole game? The Colossi do provide some variety, but in the end you're just doing the same thing 16 times over. You go into an arena, figure out the way to kill the Colossus and get teleported back. Rinse and repeat. Some wear armor you must tear down first, some need to be knocked out of the air so you can mount them, and some need to be tricked into opening an opportunity for you to climb them. And sometimes you need to use a mechanic that has never been used before or afterwards, which leads to you trying to figure out what you have to do and the stupid Colossus charging into you every 5 seconds and you getting knocked out for around 30 minutes before you get up, and then you know what? We will get into that later. Stupid pig. The main mechanic that is used for beating the Colossi is climbing them and stabbing them into these conveniently placed weak points until they, like, bleed out, I guess, or something, like, or they run out of that black goo that's powering them, or something, I don't know. In any case, reaching these weak points varies from Colossus to Colossus, but it's mostly achieved through climbing. Very slow, janky, constantly interrupted, unresponsive climbing. Fun. But as previously mentioned, at least there is some variety. That's honestly what kept me going for most of the game. Just discovering what the next Colossus brings with it and what way you need to trick it to be able to beat it. But sometimes the trick can be aggressively dumb, to the point where I had to look up a tutorial for a few Colossi because I just couldn't think of what I had to do. Let's take this stupid pig as an example. You take this little dude on in a small room, which already is kinda novel because that's probably the smallest Colossi out of all of them. My first thought was, okay, let's dodge at the final moment and let him hit a wall. Maybe the braziers so a piece of wood falls on him and burns him or something. So that's what I tried. Again and again and again. And every time I missed because this dude's hitbox is so big. Mikey was laying around for so long on the floor that by the time he got up, the pig was already on his way to hit me again. It even managed to throw me out of the arena in the first playthrough I made. I really thought I was doing something wrong here. I tried using the bow before it hits me. I tried getting on these funny looking rocks and jumping on him, but none of it worked. To avoid more frustration, I just looked up on how you need to beat him, and honestly, I wasn't far off from the actual solution. But it didn't work, because the game said no. You have to climb on top of the braziers, which have no clear markings that they're even climbable in the first place. Let the Colossus hit the braziers, which makes a stick fly out of it, and you can use this stick to throw it off the ledge. Like, what? Huh? That picking up a Bernie stick is the only time the game makes you do something like that, by the way. It's just dumb for me that the game expects you to do exactly what it wants with no room for creative problem solving in any form. That idea spreads into the open world aspect too in general, but we will cover that in a later segment of the video. As a whole, the gameplay is serviceable. It's definitely far from perfect, like too far from perfect in my opinion, but it still works fine enough to get some enjoyment out of slaying the Colossi. It definitely works with smaller and less complex fights, but I wish the remake did more to tighten up the gameplay since it looks comparably janky to the original. I think there weren't any major changes to the gameplay just to appease the fans of the original. It's not a choice I could get behind, but it's definitely one I understand. Shadow of the Colossus was always a stunning game, also on the PS2, even though it was running at a very cinematic frame rate. Yet I think it has achieved something that no other game has achieved ever since, and that's the almost concept art-esque scale of the world. Now, what do I mean by that? Have you ever seen the concept art for a game and you thought, man, that's never going to be how the game actually feels or looks like? Well, this game actually manages to do that. The grand scale of the world, beautifully rendered environments and structures, the presentation as a whole is without a shadow of a Colossus, the best part about this whole game. Everything from the huge mountains, different bodies of water, fields taken straight from the Windows XP wallpaper, and all other locations in the game, everything feels huge and mysterious. You just don't know what exactly happened here, you can just get a vague idea by playing the game and exploring. The game kinda tells you at the end what the reason behind the Forbidden Lands is, but still there's something so mysterious about these lands and the rules it follows. This game does have a map, and that is all I can say about it. The only things marked on it are already defeated Colossi, not even the ones you're going to though, and the path you have taken to your current location. And yeah, that's it. There's nothing else marked on it. I thought it's supposed to encourage free exploration of the world and finding different interesting places, like the time I was heading to a Colossus and randomly found a cave with an Easter egg to the Last Guardian, or this time I jumped on this funny looking pillar and found something. But no. I'm not sure what the map is even here for besides finding a way out if you get lost maybe or something like that. The no markers approach added with the vague directions given to you by the sword give a very free roam feeling to its exploration, and I like that part of it. The game isn't holding your hand whatsoever. It's just, I wish there were more things to actually do or find. The game throws you into this vast, expansive and amazingly realized world, but gives you basically nothing to do with it besides traversing it. Yeah, you can find some fruit trees that expand your health or shoot down some quirky looking lizards to expand your stamina, but that's really the only things you can reasonably do. Unless you're weird and want to go for all of the 70 goldy thingies that unlock a door. I wasn't really down for that. I guess you can also just run around and appreciate the different architectural wonders, but I wouldn't count that as a gameplay mechanic most people would actively go out of their way to engage in. Why can't we just go about killing the Colossi in any order the player wants? The stamina sure doesn't matter as much since the game doesn't even tell the player that they can increase their stamina gauge by collecting lizard tails. Like, sure, defeating each Colossi grants you more stamina too, but it's never really like an actual problem I had to deal with on my playthrough. This change could have benefited the game and make the player want to explore the world since you could take the Colossi on in any order. Just put their general area on the map so it has a purpose, let the player use the sword if in the vicinity of a Colossus, and boom, we already have more incentive to freely explore the Forbidden Lands. I'm baffled that they didn't decide to do that in the first place. Even though the exploration has a great basis, i.e. the world and the feeling of mystery, the lack of activities and already mentioned poor controls lead to a game that is worth exploring but isn't compelling you to do so in any way, which is a great shame because there are some things to be found. but only the most dedicated will actually find them. Heck, apparently you can even ride an eagle, which I never even thought of during my first playthrough. If you're anything like me, you're just going to watch videos about all the different secrets and tricks the game offers on YouTube, since exploration isn't really encouraged, nor is it very fun. I guess it's also as good time as any to mention the technical side of things. As previously mentioned, I played this game on PS5 thanks to backwards compatibility, but I will also note in the performance on the PS4/PS4 Pro, because that's where the game originally released. The game offers a standard quality/performance mode trade-off. Either you play at a lower res 60 FPS or a high res at 30. The game's performance modes and quality modes run at 1080p and 1440p respectively on the PS4 Pro/PS5. Surprisingly, the game managed to hold a steady 60 FPS on the Pro, which really wasn't a standard back for big Sony releases in that era. On the base PS4, the game ran at 1080p and 30 FPS. I played on the performance mode, and I haven't really found a single dropped frame throughout my whole playthrough, which at this level of graphical fidelity must have been impressive back in 2018, and still is today. Whatever platform you play it on, it's a massive upgrade over the PS2 version, which managed to run, well, more like crawl at around 15 FPS. I am disappointed with this game. Having gone in with the expectation of this generation-defying masterpiece, I didn't feel like the game came even close to that. Maybe it was back in 2005, but this remake failed to truly remake the game to improve upon the original. I really want to like this game, I truly do. The amazing art direction and a sense of mystery truly draws me into this game. Even now I completed it twice and really dislike the gameplay loop and the story structure. I can really see why it's a beloved cult classic, but in my opinion, in the year 2023, Shadow of the Colossus is no masterpiece. Ah, damn it, I could have said the game is iconic. So, hi, how are you guys doing? How did you like the video? So, since it's the first video on this channel in general, I thought I could introduce myself and explain a few things. So, I'm gonna freestyle this part because I'm not sure what I even want to say, but I guess we are going to do random video critiques on this channel. Critiques/reviews/ just my thoughts and opinions on games that I think I have a lot to say about. That's just kind of how this video was made. I just thought I could add something to the conversation about this game. And yeah. So that's what I want to do with it. I'm really hoping to get some good feedback on this video, if anyone even watches it. So like, you guys can tell me things I can improve, things that could change. And yeah, I'm probably not going to upload very regularly, just anytime I think I have something interesting to say on any given game. But yeah, if you made this, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. It's really cool. Thank you for the support, and yeah, thank you for watching it again. See you next time. I'm not sure what game I'm going to cover next, but we will see. So yeah, take care. Bye.